And then you've got Haley, DeSantis, and Vivek. Now, things are getting interesting because really right now at the top of that triad are Haley and DeSantis. And Vivek is considerably lower than those two in the polls. But the fighting right now at the debates and elsewhere has been between Vivek and Nikki Haley. And DeSantis is kind of like trying to stay out of it. And they're not really coming for him. She's tried to come for him a little. He hasn't really engaged. It's kept him out of the fray. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I want to bring you up to speed on what's happened between Nikki and Vivek as of late. You saw the third debate, right? Where they had their back and forth. She called him scum. He brought up her daughter. It was unpleasant. He went on, Vivek Ramaswamy, with Clay and Buck. And Clay Travis put it to him very frankly, like, she doesn't like you. Why doesn't she like you? Because she definitely doesn't like you. And it led to a very interesting answer. Take a listen to it in part.
Why do you think she dislikes you so much? Because it does seem personal, like the way that she's gone after you. I mean, you raised the point that her daughter is on TikTok. Her daughter's grown. And this is not acting, right? She seems to genuinely not like you. Where do you think that comes from?
I think it comes from a deep-seated envy of sorts, actually. I mean, there's a woman who's never made an honest dime in the private sector, but clearly aspires to be wealthy, and sees me as, I think, a young buck who has not. I didn't mean that in the buck sense of buck.
I get you. Yeah,
a young buck who, I think hasn't put in earned the kind of stripes that someone like her has. Funny story. The first time we met was actually her reaching out to me, and there was something striking about it. I mean, it was a very calculating move, right? This guy could be a player. I want to be the first person probably to reach out to make sure I'm getting him on my side. She ends up blurbing the back of the book. So this is somebody who, for her entire career, has proven she will do literal. You can look at the full extent of her past in South Carolina. She will do literally whatever is required to get ahead. To her now to say that out of turn to challenge her path to power, I think that she does take that very personally. But, frankly, even in this conversation, I think we've spent too much airtime on somebody who is really just another manifestation of a modern Dick Cheney that has no place in the modern Republican Party.
What
he is just
do
so
you
annoying.
Make of that?
He's just so annoying. I mean, just so pompous and narcissistic. And Nikki has 3 times the poll numbers he does, and he sits there and talks down to her like he's the future of the Republican Party. Pal, you got 5 points in the polls. 5 points. And he had a little boomlet after the first debate because people were like, wow, this guy's interesting and he seems really, really smart and articulate. And then his poll numbers cratered because he's the kid in the first chair in the classroom begging for more homework from teacher. It is just annoying. It's just I just don't think people call me after these debates, family, extended family. I have not heard a positive thing about Vivek since the first debate.
What did you think, Michael, about his criticism on the honest dollar piece of it?
Well, I mean, Vivek Ramaswamy, he bought a pharmaceutical drug that had failed clinical trials like 4 or 5 times and then repackaged it and IPO'd the drug, made like a ton of money, and the thing failed again. And he's going to lecture everyone on business acumen. It's patently absurd.
But he has hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, he certainly knows how to make money.
He does. And you know what? Tim Scott had all the money in the world to keep in this race. And he's a patriot who was like, it's not my time. The voters have said that. Guy's got like $25 million of candidate money, and he got out of the race because he wants to do the right thing.
Let me ask you this, Duncan. I see
care.
him, at this point, Vivek knows he's not going to win the nomination. I see him more like a Ron Paul. Remember how Ron Paul used to stay in it? Just because he wanted us to hear his libertarian views, and it was just a platform to sort of get his thoughts out into the mainstream and get them discussed and considered. Don't you think Vivek is doing something like that?
I'm so glad you said that, because I think it has reconstituted. I think it's reconstituted the very online Ron Paul world of 2012 that was like brigading drudge polls to make it look like Ron Paul was going to be the nominee. But it just hits different, Megyn, when it comes from nice grandpa who looks like a teddy bear than when it comes from Vivek. Because Vivek is just grating, and it feels like he's lecturing you, and he tilts his head and points his finger in the air. And I just think the visual representation of that is just annoying.
Also, I think it's a wild thing that Ron Paul's policies sound more sane than Vivek's. When Vivek is like, I'll find everyone in the government. We'll see who has an odd social security number. At the end, if it ends in an odd number, you're fired.
It's a novel approach. I said at the time, it sounded like the Cato Institute was being run by Anton Chigurh. Like, we're just going to flip a coin and some sociopath is going to decide whether you have a job or not.
Well, I'm fine because mine ends in an even. So I don't know about the rest of you people, but I'll still have a job. So I'm pro. But I do think like the words he was using were very interesting, that she has a deep-seated envy of him because he's so wealthy, that if you listen to the whole clip, he says, she came to me, he talked about it a little bit there, where he says, I was putting Woke Inc. out and she called me up and she saw me. He says in that, oh, he could be a player. He said, I was a rising star. And she came to me and like sort of tries to schmooze him, wound up blurbing his book. She doesn't look wonderful if you hear the full context of, the clip. And then you tell me what he's implying at the end, because he says she will do literally whatever is required to get ahead. He's
trying to do
Boeing.
The Trump thing. He's trying to do
he said,
Trump
first he said, but let me just finish, because he said Boeing.
Yeah.
She scratched their back, then they put her on the board. He named another company. She scratched their back, then they put her on the board, or they did something for her. And then he said, even personally, and I'll let you go do your research on that. It was like, this is pretty explosive stuff.
Yeah, it's so bad though. I mean, to act like, oh, he was this huge up and comer and that's why that she went to go see him. No. She was running for president, son, and you have $1 billion and she would like your support. That is the way that this works. I am very, very surprised that you've gotten into this line of work without doing that 101 homework, which is basically
those were not your friends. Surprise.
But I mean, look, beyond all of that, we had Nikki on the program today for your listeners who want to check that out. And we asked her a similar line of questioning about why it is that she's got this thing going on. And she's like, I'll be honest with you. I went into this debate intending not to even look at him. But she's like, I can't help it. I mean, what he tries to do to engage her over and over and over again is on his side of the ledger, not really hers. And when you invoke somebody's daughter and that daughter is sitting in the front row and you're going to get a reaction, right? So that's what he's doing. I mean, look, he's a talented guy in a lot of different respects. Is he wholly unqualified to be on that campaign stage? Unequivocally, yes. Unequivocally, he has absolutely no business being on that campaign stage. But if you like a little top hat and cane routine every once in a while and a little different version of events that doesn't actually exist in facts here in the United States of America, he's a great one to look for.
But don't you think that he's reinvented himself since the beginning of this campaign? I knew Vivek prior to him getting close to politics, when he wrote his books and he was writing op-eds for the Wall Street Journal, with a friend of mine from Yale Law School, and he was interesting, and he was a anti-woke warrior. So he was very interesting, and he kind of came into this with a much different message. Then it seems like he found a lane in trying to be like, sort of like a Trump Jr. or a Tucker Jr., and got a lot of clicks, got a lot of attention, and now he's like firmly in that camp, but it doesn't really match up with the way he entered. Am I wrong?
That's the strangest thing about it, Megyn, and that is why I'm so angry about it. Is like, I read Woke Inc. and we met Vivek before he ran for president, and just go back and read that book. I mean, like, he has flip-flopped on all the positions that he had in that book. Look, in particular, the way that he describes January 6th and Donald Trump's role in it and what he should have done after 2020. And then compare it to what he's saying on the campaign trail now. It's like, it's night and day. The guy's totally reinvented himself because he thinks there's this lane to get clicks, to be an influencer, to not really try to run for president, but basically be a troll on the debate stage against Nikki Haley. It's just like, it just seems so dishonest. And like, that's what really upsets me.
Debt. You can go to bed thinking about it and wake up thinking about it still. High interest credit cards and loans make it nearly impossible to pay off your debt. And insane inflation keeps you stuck paycheck to paycheck. The system traps you in debt. Well, donewithdebt.com can be a lifeline. I've talked about my own experience with debt back when I was in law school in the past. It's stressful. Donewithdebt.com has a new strategy to help erase your debt faster and easier than you ever thought possible. And here's what they can do for you. Analyze all the debt options you qualify for, minimize interest rates, cut medical bills, and reduce debt without bankruptcy and without a loan. But you do need to hurry. Some debt solutions are time sensitive. Go to donewithdebt.com. Find out how easy they make it and find out if it's right for you. That's donewithdebt.com, donewithdebt.com. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.